All right, everybody. Hello and welcome to Thursday Mastermind Roundtable with Elify. My name is E.R. Wolf. I'm one of the co-founders here at Elify, and this is an open discussion to support everybody on the call and all of our community members on how to best leverage the technology, solve common business problems, create a life by design, etc. Real quick before we get started, as a suggestion, if we have not connected or you have not connected with each other, please take an opportunity to introduce yourself on the Zoom chat using the chat at the bottom of the Zoom. Go on ahead and let us know where you're joining us from. Let us know your digital business card link, and obviously take an opportunity to open each other's digital business card links and add those to your card index, network with each other. So that's part of the process there. Shelly, good to see you.
Whoa, where'd all your hair go?
What?
Somebody hit you with a Flowbee, man.
Right? Woo, woo.
Looks nice. Looks really nice.
Getting clean cut. I clean up.
Very nice.
So for today's topic on the roundtable discussion, everybody, and the theme of this week, we want to talk about systems and we want to talk about process. So I want to start this out by how I'm defining systems and process, just because I know a lot of the times those terms are used interchangeably. And we'll start off with process. And the thing I think about when I think about process is every single action you take, you can create a process around. If you do a follow-up phone call with somebody, you can create a process that's as simple as the process is pick up the phone, dial the number, hit call. Or it could be as complex as go over to the user profile of the person I'm calling, go over and look at the notes of that person, review my past interactions, activate or check off the alert that I'm reminded to follow up with that person, then pick up the phone, then put in the number, then make the call, then have the call, complete the call. That's the process for follow-up. So again, every action you take, could be making coffee in the morning, as I mentioned in previous discussions, where the process is, step one, you put the water in the thing, you put the coffee in the thing, you hit the button, you put the cup underneath, then the coffee comes out. But the big key with process is you want to do it in the right order, right? You want to identify what the order of operation is in your process. And I think that's something that sometimes gets overlooked, and then you wonder why your process isn't working. It's like brewing the coffee before you put the cup underneath for it to brew into, right? You wonder why coffee's all over the floor. It's because your process is flawed. So one thing I want to encourage everybody and open the floor for is to talk about process and the processes we put in place for the different things that we're doing and how we can optimize process over time. The other side is system. And the only extension on it is system is a series of different actions or a series of different processes that you do in sequence to accomplish a greater thing, right? So I think about a good example would be your morning routine is a system, right? Each action has a process. Your alarm goes off. So it starts out with setting the alarm the night before if you don't have it repeating. It goes off. You get out of bed, maybe you brush your teeth or get in the shower or do whatever activities, right? You don't do those out of order. You don't get in the shower before you turn off the alarm and all of that type of stuff. So I'm going to throw this out and open this up. If you do have a comment, a question, a thought, a tip, or a trick revolving around our theme for this week, please feel free to unmute yourself, come ahead. Obviously, ideally, raise your hand in the reactions or throw any questions down in the chat. So anybody, go ahead. All right.
I came on here because I need better processes.
I think we all do, Kathy. I think we all do, right? We're all trying to continually improve our process. This is why I think that book that James Clear did, and I saw like something about the 20 best books you should read, Atomic Habits. It's all about the process. That's what he's talking about. He's like, what is your daily process for anything when we think about it as a high level? And how are you improving that process over time? And inevitably, you're going to get a law of diminishing returns, right? Like the first change you make to your process may be reduces the steps by 50% or simplifies the outcome. And then you chip away at it over and over again until you have a law of diminishing return. And then all of a sudden your process is just chugging away and it becomes this repetitive habit that you do all the time, even unconsciously. So I agree. I'm working on it all the time, Kathy.
Constantly. I think one of my favorites is an old school one, Eat the Frog or Eat That Frog or something like that.
Yep.
And I think that's probably when I first realized, maybe I have a little bit of ADD. So for me, it's just like taking on too much and having like it swirls around and then I can't figure out where to start. And so I'm always looking for tips and tricks on like how to best not just, pick the thing to start with and then stick with it. Right. So that's why I was like, I saw the topic I'm jumping on today.
Yeah. I mean, I've even heard like Michael Ray talk about it in construction, right? Our process for cleaning up the construction site is we sweep from the front of the room to the back of the room, right? And everything goes in one direction. We do it the same every time. And we know that's how we clean up the job site, right? We don't just give everybody a broom and let them go around sweeping dust into each other's areas. You're right. Just move it around circularly and wonder why it takes forever to clean up the job site. We've designed a process for that. And I think one of the things that we can all take an opportunity, because I'm in the same boat, 100% in the same boat. I don't have a perfect process for everything. And as my life changes or things are being adjusted, I have to implement and adopt new process all the time. And one of those things I think we can all sit down and do is just like we sit down on Mondays and part of the process is to plan out the week and then execute our plan every single day, we can sit down with any action or activity and just list out the process for that. And then look at that and say, is this producing the result that I want it to produce? And if the answer is yes, great, you stick with that process and you continue to run it every time you have to take that action. But if it's not producing that result, you look for the areas where you can adjust it, reorder it, optimize it so that it continues to yield an increase in the performance of implementing that action. And you could get so, I guess, for lack of a better word, anal about it, that you do it for everything, right? That's those type A type people that I have some of that tendency where it's like, I've got to follow the same process for every single action that I'm doing. Otherwise, I almost feel like disrupted, It's like easy. Yeah, go ahead, Kathy.
Chris is like, if you know my husband, you've met it, Chris. Yep. He finds comfort in that, right? He has comfort in his routine that he knows that how long it's going to take him and what he needs to do and what needs to get done. That if something throws that off, right, then there's like, there's a red flag goes up. But I think for me, I call it the tornado. If I call him, I'm like, I'm in a tornado. He's like, all right, what are you trying to do? Yep. Let me help you figure out where to start. But I think that's one of the things that I do love about Shuffle is I do have a routine. Like we've talked about before, I meet somebody, I know what I'm going to send to them. I know what I'm going to what's going to happen. Where's their notes going to go? And I know that if I take those few minutes in the front end, it's going to save me in the back, because that way I've got all that stuff captured and I'm not like, oh my gosh, where did I meet this person? Right. If I'm doing that, I might as well have 4,000 business cards laying around. It's the same thing. But if you have a routine and you set it up and you make it work for you, again, that's one of the things that did give me a little bit of a contact routine.
Yeah, and I think there's a few things to unpack on the statement that you just had, Kathy, where it's like, the first thing is understand that a process can be created, right? And take the time to do that. And to your point, there's some upfront heavy lifting that might have to happen in order for you to, one, design your process, right? What is my process going to be? You have to actually put some thought behind that. And then I think the hardest thing for all of us, myself included most definitely, is the implementation or the start of implementing your process. I think as you would attest to this, Kathy, you didn't always have the Shuffle process for your follow-up, your contacts, your notes, your reminders, all of those types of things. So you were doing it in a different way. You were leveraging a different process, different tools, and then you had to adopt this. And there was probably an uphill heavy lift to adopt it, learn it, but you learned it so well, you became a master trainer at it, right? And now it becomes almost in a way second nature. And that's sort of the flow of the learning curve that we hear about all the time, right? Like, okay, I've got to implement it. Oh, it's such a heavy lift implementing it. This first week was really hard. The second week was a little less hard. The third week was a little less hard. And then eventually it becomes routine where you're following it along. And then I think that's when you start encountering the things where once it's routine to you, you notice that the routine gets changed or disrupted, gets thrown into chaos. And that's only when you've adopted it and it's become second nature to you in a way. And I can totally see that because I've experienced it for myself, where all of a sudden I'll be doing it, everything's flowing. You're in that flow state where you're not even thinking about your process. You're just sort of doing and following along. And then something comes up and you're like, wait a second, that's that red flag you were talking about, or that's that chaos. And I know a good tip that I learned, and this was part of the Mindset of the Champion stuff. He talks about AMP. Michael Ray talks about this acronym AMP, AMP. And it's attitude, it's moment, and it's process, right? So what is the moment in time right now? Because all we do is we prioritize our time. And what is the action or attitude I need to have that I'm going into in that block of time? And what is the processes that are going to take place? And it's almost like one of those things where even before coming on one of our lives, I sort of go through that AMP thought process in my head of what's my attitude on these Zoom calls, what's our process going to be? I have a process when we start these, right? I've got to push out the announcement earlier in the morning. I've got to pull up and have it open with just me in it. I have to go live on YouTube for everybody who's watching us live. Then I have to admit everybody in the room. I don't admit everybody in the room before going out and letting everybody know that the Zoom is going on. You know what I mean? There's a whole AMP process that goes along with that. And that's part of my system for the day, right? My Zoom calls have a process. My follow-ups have a process. My morning routine has a process. And whether I like it or not, and whether you like it or not, there's a process that you're doing right now for everything. You just don't, it's so subconscious, you don't even realize that you do it. And so that's one of those things where you can think about that process, list it down, look at it because you're already doing it. We all get up in the morning. We all have a routine in the morning. We all have a routine when we follow up. And analyze that and see, is there room for improvement? What is that 1% improvement and small incremental change that I feel confident I can adjust? Angelo, I see your hand up. Welcome to the conversation and thanks for joining us. Go ahead, my friend.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, it's a lot of great information because like you said, you can have a game plan of, like Kathy was saying, step one, step two. As soon as I get up, brush my teeth, wash my face, make your bed, make your coffee. You can have that process, but life happens sometimes. Some type of monkey wrench come in, somebody call you, the computers won't crank up and start up at work. One of your kids lock themselves out their house. And I'm telling you one of my stories. So and they way on the other side of town and you just got back in town and you're tired. But the thing is, you have to be willing to adapt with your process. Yeah. So if you have a game plan of what you're doing every day, you got to be ready for that hiccup or whatever happens to keep it going. The biggest mistake that you can make is just get mad and shut down for the whole day. That's the biggest mistake that you can make. No, just start from that point forward and say, okay, my day is going to be better from this point forward. It wasn't what I wanted it to be at the beginning, but from this point forward, I can make it a better day. I can get back on track and just take it from there.
I think that's so true, Angelo, and more than you know or realize, because we refer to them as the unexpected expectancies. You have to realize that chaos is going to happen, to your point, and things are going to pop up that are 100% outside of your control. If you're anything like me, I have these perfectionist tendencies, right? I want everything to go as planned to a T, follow the process, absolutely. And if chaos arrives, which it inevitably will, it can throw me off. And I think the key that you said in all of this could be labeled as reset. And at any point during the day, like I like to reset every single day, first and foremost. I know it's a new day. I know it doesn't matter what happened yesterday, how horrible yesterday was, any of that type of stuff. And maybe there are even things from yesterday that are carrying over into today that still need to be addressed. But today is a new day. That's the first thing, right? Reset every single day. I used to be a person, and I think this is true for a lot of people, is like you try to kick off January 1st and live your perfect year. And then by January 5th, you're like, chaos is happening. I'll just give up till next year. And you wait 365 days to reset again. Right. And then you get into that habit. Like, this was my progression, right? Reset every year. And then you realize, wait, maybe I should reset every quarter. No, reset every month, reset every week. Guys, we reset every single day. And Angelo, I think to your point, this is so true. You can reset during the day, right? Mm-hmm. Something comes up, something creeps up, it throws us into chaos. And then we just take a step back. We say, okay, from this point moving forward, this is what we're going to do. These are the choices we're going to make. This is the process we're going to implement. And you start with that. And if it doesn't work out, you reset the next day and the next day. And I've heard this so true, especially for entrepreneurs and small business owners. Look, we can fire ourselves every single day as long as we're willing to rehire ourselves the next morning. We can quit every single day as long as we're willing to restart again the next day. And it's just that perpetual get back into that mind frame that all we have to do. And I think it was, maybe it was the 12-week yearbook where they were saying, if you even accomplish 65%, and let's think about this, because a perfectionist wants to accomplish 100% of their process. If you even accomplish 65%, so that means a third of everything is just going to chaos, you're still going to make forward progress towards the direction that you want to go. And I think that's something we can all remind ourselves on as well, is as long as I'm doing 2/3 of it right, I'm going to head in that direction. And if I can find ways to get it from, 65% to 70 to 75% to 80%, we just have to understand we'll probably never get to 100%. And if you're living in that 100% perfect world, let me know what the secret is. You know what I mean? Scott, I see your hand up. Welcome to the conversation.
Yes, thank you. My question is, any guidelines on sort of as you implement a new system or process that maybe someone has shared with you, how long do you stick with it, before you abandon it? I'll give an example. There was a system on connecting and reaching out. I learned it from somebody, tried it for a little bit, didn't really get much traction, abandoned it, came back to it, and all of a sudden it's working fantastic. And I'm thinking, why didn't I stick with this the whole time?
I think this is so true. And I think it also goes along with some of the adoption curves that we've talked about on earlier calls, the chasm of despair that we get in if we're implementing something new and it doesn't immediately yield results. And Scott, from the standpoint of a timeline, and I think we've all come across or read this statistic, it's like it takes 21 days to make a habit, or here's the reality, and I think this is also in James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, is it's really about repetition, right? How many times am I willing to do this? I think Malcolm Gladwell talked about the 10,000 hour rule. If you want to become an expert, and I mean on any process, right? If you commit 10,000 hours to that, inevitably you're going to have it dialed in and you're going to be running it a majority of the time really close to perfect. You know what I mean? However, I would suggest for anybody out there, at a minimum, things like think about in terms, a month doesn't seem like a lot of time when you think about the big picture, even 2 months. I try to look at a minimum all the time if I'm implementing something new, about a 90-day period. However, here's the reality. If it's a daily thing, in 90 days, I'm going to do that thing maybe 90 times. If it's a multi-time a day thing, like follow-up phone calls, and I'm doing 5 a day, in 90 days, I will do 5 times 90, right? But if it's something you're only going to be doing once a week or once a month, in 90 days, you're only going to do it 3 times. So instead of thinking about a length of time, my suggestion, and I want to open this up for anybody who has a tip here for Scott as well, or anybody on the call, is I would look at doing it how many repetitions, and think about like that 90 reps or 100 reps. Even think about it in your current practice, right? If somebody's trying to heal, get healthy, do some type of rehabilitation, there's a certain number of movements or times or repetitions that you want them to do it for over a certain length of time. And once they get closer to the end of that, they've really got it dialed in. But the first time they do it, they might be like, what, this leg curl thing, I just can't do it right. Or I've never done this before, how do I work it? Or this stretch thing. But after doing it so many times, that's when they start to get the process adopted. So I would say maybe like 100 reps. Think about it in terms of reps versus time. Anybody else the thought to Scott's question? Okay. Any other thoughts?
I like that. I like that idea though.
Yeah,
For
go
me,
ahead, Kathy.
I was going back to what Angela was talking about was getting like caught up in something and then having it ruin like your whole day and just stopping and getting mad and like not doing anything the rest of the day. For me, it's increments. I try and like if I like yesterday I was trying to put a picture on something online and I could not work. So I just had to go away from it. I was like, I set a timer and I either way, I'll set a timer and walk away from something and try and refocus. Or if I am in that tornado and I'm not sure what I want to work on and I'm just like, I'm not getting anything productive done, I tell myself, okay, do something minutes and you'll figure out if this is the thing you're supposed to be doing or not. Because then if I'm like, you know what, nope, I can't get this done, but it's not the right thing right now. It at least makes me remember like I can accomplish.
Yeah, and I like that idea of stepping away, right? There's nothing wrong with stepping away. And again, losing one day in the grand picture is well worth it compared to stopping altogether and losing all the future days. I mean, as a young parent, and anybody who has children, may have experienced this. Like, you want something to throw you in a tornado, ask your kids who are young to do something, go potty or get ready for bed, and it's like, you guys aren't following my process at all, right? We're supposed to do this and this and this, and you guys are running around like crazy people. It's okay to step away. It's okay to let them cool down and then come back and say, okay, here's what we're going to do, and reevaluate and then hit it. And again, I think back to Angela's point, and Angela, we'll get to you in a second with the hand. Reset, just take an opportunity to reset. And Kathy, to what you were saying, try not to lose a whole day. Hey, there have been days where I've lost a whole day, right? Something has gone, the first call of the day was utter crap. And it just set the tone for the rest of the day. And I try to step away and I try to get reset, and thankfully, if you do have things scheduled, usually when you're going into the next thing, you can just take a moment before that thing. And again, going back to that AMP conversation, reset your attitude for that moment and go into that process fresh and renewed. In fact, the one thing I want to add to this AMP thing, if you guys have never seen it or never noticed it, go on Google, do some YouTube searches for like Tony Robbins when he starts his event, and you'll actually see him behind the main stage. And he goes through a process. You'll see him spin around, you'll see him hit his chest, and you'll see him do that consistently. Like, you could watch it through each one of his events. That's him going through AMP, right? He's setting his attitude for that moment to follow through with this process. And you'll see him do it right before he jumps out from the curtains and he's like, it's showtime type of thing. You can do those for yourself, right? Like, just set that AMP process and go through with it. Angelo, go ahead. You're probably muted there.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Got you now. Go ahead, Angelo.
Okay. All right, I like the concept of the AMP. I'm going to have to implement that. It's like getting ready for a game. If you play sports or an event that you're really up on or you into, you're getting ready for it. But one of the things that Kathy was saying about getting ready and preparing, and what you said about losing the whole day, I have a thing I call RPA. Okay, I have a day where I get, Monday, you want to get sprint planning, you want to get ready for the week. Well, Sunday night, you start getting ready for Monday the next day. So you have a day, maybe it's administrative day, maybe it's a follow-up day, but every day, let me emphasize this, every day is an RPA day. And I used to have my team say, what is RPA? Revenue producing activity. And I call it RPA. And I have little stickers in my car are in my office and even in my home office. So when I'm going around and I get sidetracked, I'm glad Kathy said that. I need to bring that back out. I had started using a little timer because when you're an entrepreneur or you're working from home, you get a lot of family members or friends. They want to call and just talk. No, we're still at work. Even though we're working from home, it's a business. It's not like I'm at home just watching ESPN or the stories or something. We're actually working. So I do kind of, well, I have noticed, I did buy a timer, and that's very important to make sure your time, you can't get time back. You can restart, but you can't get that lost time back. And like I said, every day should have something with RPA, some kind of way. That's what I adopted, and I love that concept. But yeah, you just have to, the long story short, the restart, use the RPA and get you a timer if you have that problem. Like I said, Kathy, that's fantastic because you just jarred my memory. I need to bring my timer back up.
I love that. I love that, Angelo. And there are a few things, right? I want to show you guys this. I've got 2 clocks in here. And this is something I'd recommend for anybody. I don't know if it's like a $10 or $20 thing on Amazon. You can come in, and if you're setting down for a specific process, you can put, 30 minutes on the clock, an hour on the clock, and let that thing go. And then it just chirps. If I go into some meetings and I talk and I set that expectation, how long do we have today to talk? I might even say, great, to respect your time, I'm going to set a little timer. And sometimes even when I'm looking at myself on the screen, I can see that red half circle starting to close up. And again, I love a few things that you said, Angelo, that I want to bring out, and then Shelly, we'll get to you here in a second. The first thing that you mentioned, and again, I think what I love about this mastermind is if we all take an opportunity to listen to everybody else, we're going to find these gold nuggets in what everybody's talking about. One of the things, Angelo, you said, it's like getting ready for a game. I'm an athlete as well, an ex-athlete. I remember the pregame process, right? And you go through and we'd be listening to music to amp us up, right? So there's this sort of, yeah, rah, rah. Maybe you have a favorite song and you just need to reset. Put that thing on your phone, and then when you need it, replay it. Or maybe it's a motivational or inspirational video. It's okay to watch that thing over and over again if it resets you. We used to watch the highlight reel of the previous games, right? Like the big hits, all these other things. And it would just, it would almost get you those goosebumps in your body where you're like, I'm so ready to go out and implement our process. Again, you can do that in your work life as well. I think the other things that you mentioned that are critical here, if you're anything like me and you're a work from home professional, I've been working from home for 20 years. My kids know, like when I'm in my office and the door is shut, daddy's working. And, when they come in and I'm in here, I show them, guys talked about this as well. Like daddy's working. This is what daddy does. Here's what I do, and you're in my office and this is my space. And having that time to really be focused and have a place to go and be focused at and eliminate those distractions and allocate some time to really be focused on the task or process at hand. I mean, if it means turning off your phone or turning it silent and putting it face down, just like you would do if you went into a live meeting, it's super duper powerful. How many times do we're almost conditioned with our dopamine that when our phone goes off, we want to pick it up and look at it, right? And if we just take and implement that one thing, right? AMP or even the RPA stuff. I love, Angelo, what you said in sort of closing here. What can you divert over to? If your day sort of goes to chaos and you can pick up a revenue generating activity that you can go into and you know that that's going to help you or make forward progress. Maybe if your day goes to chaos, you're like, okay, I'm going to shift over and my default is to start outreach, right? And I know outreach is a revenue generating activity. Or my day goes to crap, and if I need to reset, part of that reset process is I'm going to divert over to follow up and just start following up with people, or prospecting. And then that helps with that reset process. I think that's a really powerful thing that anybody can do. And obviously on a daily planning basis, if you aren't doing revenue generating activities or revenue producing activities, as Angelo calls them, you need to implement those on a daily basis. 365 days of small revenue generating activities will far outweigh 1 or 2 revenue generating activities a week, and then pacifying your situation by doing non-revenue generating activities, and be able to identify those in your process or in your system. Which of these are revenue generating? Because in some cases, those are the most important ones. Shelly, you had your hand up, and thank you for waiting so much. Go ahead.
No worries. So I was given this by somebody who's like 75% of doTERRA. She's obviously a billionaire. And she's told me to write in all my crap.
Yep.
What I like to do, as well as, things educational, spiritual, school, all the things that I have, but make sure that I write in the things that I really like to do also, like, singing and things like that, and make the time to do those things. And even if you have to, if you notice, like some of this is in pencil.
Yep.
So those kinds of things I can reschedule, but make sure and keep doing them, even if you have to reschedule afterwards. But to make sure that you do the things for yourself so that you want to keep going.
I love this. I love this so much. A few things, Shelly, that you're talking about. Again, this is sort of how I feel I can support people, is listening and then calling out some of the gold that I just see in what everybody is saying, because we all are bringing so much to the community and so much to the table. First thing, have a plan. What Shelly's just showing is the plan, right? This is my week at a glance. This is what I'm going to be doing. The second thing, and we've talked about it when we talked about like the win list, mindset of a champion, the wheel of life, some of these types of things. Success, at least as I define it, and hopefully as you're starting to identify and define it yourself, is about balance and being successful in all areas. Look, it's not worth it. In my opinion, it's not worth it to make $1 million, but sacrifice your family, your health, your faith, your personal, because that's your sole focus. Instead, Shelly, to your point, like factoring in things like personal time. I'm a person who loves the outdoors. Like if I'm stuck in this office or this room 24/7 just to make a buck, I would go insane, right? In fact, part of the reason why my why or will of doing everything is so that I can have that freedom to go out and immerse myself in nature more often. So having that thing, whether you love to paint, whether you love to sing, whether, these are hobbies or these are even career paths that you still want to find and allocate time for, because it keeps you sane. It keeps you focused on those other things that maybe you have to do, but you don't necessarily like to do, because we're all gonna have those things. We're all going to have those things that we have to do, but we don't necessarily like to do. The other thing I want to call out, I'm going to share my screen real quick. We've talked about this before. And Shelly, I love the fact that you have a form printed out. And if that works for you, and if you're watching this and a form works for you, by all means, do it. Print it out, write on it, put some things in pen, put some things in pencil, have it there. If you find that you're doing that consistently over and over again, and a lot of the things repeat, there are so many online tools, your phone calendar, the printed material, a notebook, a Google Calendar, iCalendar. These things are pretty much free tools. To Shelly's point, block in your time. Time blocking is so valuable. And just such a valuable tool. In this case, I'm showing the calendar here. I've got the time blocked for our calls. You can see we're halfway or a little bit halfway through the mastermind today. We've got Friday with the founders. But to Shelly's point, don't just block in some of the action items or activities you have. Block in the other important items. Maybe you're blocking in time to work. Right? When am I going to be working? When am I going to be doing those revenue generating activities? In an ideal world, if chaos wasn't popping out of every turn, where would I put in time to be focused? And these are focus times, right? I'm going to eliminate the distractions, and I'm going to work on maybe tasks, activities, or meetings that are going to fall within these times. And then most importantly, to what Shelly was talking about, and I'm going to put one more overlay on here, take an opportunity to put all of those things in. When are you doing family time? When are you going to do something for yourself or something physical? When do you plan to do things like meditate or have personal time for yourself to do things? Again, this is just an example, right? I'm not saying everybody needs to follow this time blocking thing, but I do know that, like Shelly, I've implemented this type of process, and I know I don't even need to look at the calendar anymore, because my day will flow through this, right? The day's going to end around 4:30. Yes, I've got some other things I'm going to need to do, but in between that and bedtime, it's like family time and spouse time. And I feel like if I don't prioritize that, if I don't take an opportunity to prioritize that, then I'll find an excuse to miss out on it, right? And that could be everything from the easiest thing to make an excuse is for me is like working out, right? If I don't make it a priority to block something, I'll have an excuse, just didn't get to it today, I'll do it tomorrow, etc. And the same thing, like even for family time or spouse time, I have to remind myself that my wife and I still need to date, so we have to put in there like once every month that we have to go out on a date. And it's just a reminder to me so that I don't accidentally overlook it. I would never intentionally overlook that, but it can happen. Things can fall through the gaps. So I want to remind myself, what are all of the processes I want to accomplish? What are all the systems? And I feel like if I put it down in writing, and what I love about the online stuff is I can set little alerts or reminders. And that's the only thing I see as an advantage over the paper side of things. The advantages, in my opinion, of the paper, you're physically writing it down. How powerful is that? I mean, I still am a person who uses a notebook to physically write things down. Even Kathy's got it up. I see Shelly's got pages, all of that type of stuff. Even if I never flip back to look at what's on the previous pages, the physical act of writing it down helps me commit it to memory. And then I can do what Kathy, I know you've trained on, is if I'm doing a meeting and I take notes, instead of typing something in or feeling like I'm distracted, I'm just writing down some notes. I can always take out my phone, take a snapshot of that note, and then attach it to the contact that I met with for future reference. So there's so much power to putting things down in writing. If you just do it recurring on an online calendar, you can miss out to some of that.
It makes me feel less stressed when everything's been written down, even if it's not followed to the letter, just to know that, oh, okay, these things fall on Monday, these things I have to do on Tuesday. It's just so much easier. And to me, I'm like a whirlwind sometimes. So that actually brings me back down to earth too.
It's a settling. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very frustrating at first for a person who's a big picture person to sit down and have to do the stupid daily task of writing all it down. But once it's done, it actually brings you a lot of peace, which is weird, but it's true.
No, so true, Shelly. From even my own experience, imagine just trying to remember everything that you have going on today, just in your head, right? Who am I going to follow up with? Well, there's that person and that person and that person and the person I talked to 6 months ago who said now wasn't, what activities do I have to do? All of that type of stuff. If you're doing that and trying to just mentally remember it with the chaos and the distractions, as Angela was talking about, and all of those things, it's like it consumes a ton of energy to try and do that. And Shelly, to your point, if you can just, we call it the brain dump, right? If you can just brain dump it all out so that you take that burden off of yourself, it's almost like a relief. It's still there. It's just the paper or the technology is doing that heavy lifting. It's bearing that burden for you. So if you can find areas where you can leverage technology or leverage the paper or the writing to take that burden for you, to Shelly, your point, it's a massive relief. And then I think another thing, and my wife talked about this when she was training for her half marathon, and it's the ability to strike through things and sort of get that sense of accomplishment. I mean, my wife lives every day by her daily task list. And she rewrites it every single day as part of that writing things down, even if she's carrying things over from the previous day. And I see her do it every morning. And Angelo, to your point, sometimes the night before she's doing preparation for the next day. It's this continual cycle of things. And the biggest thing that she told me of why, I'm like, why do you do that? Could you set these as recurring things and, let them pop up and alert you? She said, because I need the empowerment and feeling of accomplishment of striking through those things. She's got a pen, she writes it down, and then next to it is a giant Sharpie. And just to see the grin on her face as she takes that Sharpie and strikes through those items, then at the end of the day, and part of this whole process of a system is having some personal accountability, is to look back and reflect on the progress that you've made and be able to measure that in some way. when she pulls up her daily list and 75% of it has black lines on it, and yeah, maybe there are a few things she didn't get to that'll carry over to tomorrow, she can rest easy and sleep better knowing that she still accomplished a ton. Yeah, Shelley, go ahead.
And as a woman, let me just say, that is so huge because we go to bed. Have you ever seen that movie, Like a Woman Thinks, or whatever it's called? It is so true. We totally think like that. We walk through the park and we're thinking, did we turn off the coffee pot? Did we do this? Did we do that? Like all these things are going through our head that have absolutely nothing to do with the walk in the park because we just can't turn it off. So this actually helps, like making a schedule and that task list, like writing that, blacking those things off is so huge to a woman's mind to know that they accomplished that stuff, because we have an ongoing task list that is just incredibly long.
Yep.
Or at least we feel like we do.
Just no sticky notes. Sticky notes will doom you.
I only use those for the inside of books when I need to like do a pop out
Mark
for
a
something.
page.
Yeah.
I will use them for things that I either need to add to my list and I just need to write them down really quick and then I need to aggregate them somewhere. But a good example of your no sticky notes, Kathy, I remember I was talking with one of our early investors actually, and we were talking about this concept of how to leverage technology just to remind us following up with people. And I said, how do you follow up? And he goes, every time I need to follow up with somebody, I write their name on a sticky note and I write the date when I need to follow up with them and I slap it on the wall, next to my desk. And I said, that's great. And then I walked around his desk and there were 3 or 4 sticky notes that had fallen off the wall and were sitting on the floor. And I said, well, how do those follow-ups work out for you? And if you're not constantly pulling, right? So part of his process and his system, he would have to look up at the wall and he would have to go through each of the notes, and they're not in any particular order. And he'd have to look at the dates and say, which one is coming up next? And I said, that's a clear process, but is that the best process? You know what I mean? Because wouldn't it be better to just put the name and the date you need to follow up into a piece of technology and then get that burden out of your mind, right? Did I look at the sticky board today? Did I actually put it down on a sticky note? Sort of to Shelley's point, did I turn off the coffee pot? Did I unplug this? No, you just put it in. And then as they say on the infomercial, you sort of set it and forget it. And then all of a sudden your phone goes off and you're like, oh, I guess I'm following up with Shelley today. Oh, I'm going to look at my contact list, sort it by my upcoming. Oh, I've got Kathy following up tomorrow. I've got, Greg the next day, etc. Man, when you get that stuff out of your mind, then the walk becomes the walk. The walk in the park becomes a time that's personal time, or you can use on your other ideas and creativity because you've gotten that other stuff out of your mind. You sort of cleared the mental list.
I remember that being one of the tips though, back in the day when I was in direct sales. You would either, you'd have your little book or your box full of slips that you put on all in order who was coming up next, or you use the sticky notes on the wall. That's why, I will never forget when somebody shared Shuffle with me and I was like, oh my gosh, right? No more are you sitting waiting somewhere in an office or you're doing something and all your follow-up notes are stuck to your wall in your office at home and you don't know who is on your list. Now it's with you. It's right there in the phone.
I think that's probably the biggest key feature of technology today, is that technology does some of the activity, action, or heavy lifting for us. And there's a difference between, in my mind, the way I think about it is an analog process and a digital process, right? An analog process or a digital process. We can go through the analog process of doing math, right? Adding numbers. Or we can leverage technology and just key it in and hit enter and it does it for us. Now, I'm not saying we have to 100% rely on technology in every situation, but I do look at when I'm reviewing a process and I'm doing that process manually in analog, right? And I look at it and I go, are there areas or elements within this where leveraging technology is going to save me from having to push or pull information manually? Because when we think about this, and when we were first starting out with developing the technology, I'll tell you the two most probably general ways that people we saw were managing their relationships, doing relationship management. The first way, the notebook. Okay, they put down, and I do it, but I leverage technology on top of it. And I think that's the key differentiator. But you put down the date of every meeting you have, you put down all of that type of stuff. But if you're only doing it in this way, the moment you close this thing, it's out of sight, out of mind. And just like the sticky note on the wall follow-up example, if you want to take action on something you did or wrote down in your notebook, you physically have to take it off the shelf. You have to open it up. You have to flip back through. And that process becomes very long, and you can condense it down by saying, hey, all I need to do is take a snapshot of that note, like the extra steps, take a snapshot, assign it in a note to tagged or as part of that contact. And it becomes this whole world of, oh, I just need to go here and quickly look. So you added a technology overlay to that analog process, and you don't necessarily have to get away from that. But this was one of the first most used ways that can be improved. Here's the second one, and it's leveraging technology, but still requires the manual pull. I cannot tell you the number of people I have come across or met who they manage their relationships in an Excel spreadsheet. Here is the names of everybody I know, and they're all listed down there, their contact information. It's just like this manual spreadsheet, a notes column that gets bigger and bigger every time you add a note for somebody. You highlight the people you want to follow up with. You put blacking out of the people who never want to talk to you again, right? And that was sort of that process. But the moment you close that Excel sheet or you fail to pull it up and scroll through it and say, who do I need to follow up with, is the moment it stops producing results for you. You know, again, the next shift forward on why we have follow-up reminders in Shuffle is for that reason alone. I do not want to manually think about who I need to follow up with. Okay, if you're not using the follow-up reminders in Shuffle, and what I mean by using is during each action with somebody, you're going to set an expectation for when that next action is going to happen. That's the first step in the process. The second step is once you've identified that and ended the interaction, you're going to quickly log your note, right? Take a picture and put it up or whatnot and set the next follow-up reminder. And then once you do that, like add those 3 steps, no different than saving the note, you forget about it. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about that burden. And whether you're following up with somebody even the next day or the next week or the next month, you're not concerning yourself with it. You're not concerning, like how much energy do you think you waste thinking about people you could follow up with? Save that energy, apply it to a revenue generating activity, as Angelo was talking about, and wait for your phone to go off or proactively pull up your Shuffle and say, who's coming up for follow-ups? And is there anybody I could sort of advance forward or follow up earlier with? And then you just review those notes and you block out some time. Here's when I'm going to do my follow-ups. Are you going to do them first thing in the morning? Are you going to do them midday at lunchtime? Are you going to do them one day a week? You have to ask yourself, when am I going to do that? And then commit to that process like Scott was talking about. Put in 100 repetitions on following that process and measure it against the baseline of what you are currently doing. Because you're either going to adopt something new and it's going to improve where you're going and increase your trajectory, or you're going to default to what you've always been doing. And so we all have a baseline measurement, right? How am I doing it right now? And can it be improved that causes improved results? Okay, well, we've got about 10 minutes left on today's mastermind call. Any other tips, tricks, questions, topics that anybody wants to explore?
I was just going to go back to what we were talking about way earlier. Somebody mentioned something about refocusing and this is just something. So this is something that I actually bring this to my meetings every time we have a meeting. But it's something I have internalized so much that kind of like putting myself in timeout, taking a timeout. So this is one of my favorite sayings. So I don't know if you can read that. So take responsibility for the energy that you bring in this space. So I try and convey that to other people, but then sometimes I'm like, now that's on you. So how you're going to react to this, or how you're going to choose what you're going to do next, or how you're going to, follow up or do, like you said, kind of restart. That has just been ingrained in me because it's constantly in my face.
Yeah.
And has really made some adjustments in how fast I can readjust, right? It doesn't take me as long to reset as it used to.
I think this is so important to remember, not just within ourselves, Kathy, but within the people that we're interacting with. I always try to come to each interaction assuming a positive intent by the other person, but we never know what's going on in somebody's life and what they're carrying forward from a previous moment in time, right? From their past experiences, etc. And I think a lot of people, in fact, the majority of people, to your point, get into maybe a trap within themselves where they carry forward things from that previous, just recent interaction, right? I was driving to a meeting and I just got pulled over and got a ticket, Well, clearly, maybe I did something wrong and got a ticket for it. But then I take that anger and frustration into the next thing that I was going to do. Maybe I was going to a meeting, you know what I mean? To take an opportunity to remind myself what, Kathy, you're talking about and reset going into that. I don't want to take that burden and that frustration and that anger from getting a ticket, into that meeting, and then I'm projecting it on that person I'm meeting with, and I'm not accomplishing what I intended to. Likewise, maybe it's having some aspect of empathy. I don't want to take or go into a situation and understand that the person who's projecting on me frustration or anger has anything potentially to do with me. And so I can't hold that, to myself, because in a way that's on them. So I think that's so important to remind ourselves with, you know what I mean? And trying to figure out, I don't know if anybody has any tips out there on, we can only control what we can control, right? And a lot of the time it's us, our emotions and our choices. And I think one of the challenges that we all face in a social world is we can't control other people, So there are going to be situations where, who knows, maybe this person just got done with a doctor's appointment and found out they have cancer. Maybe this person just got the ticket on the way to this thing. Maybe this person just lost their big client and now they're coming in to meet with me. I have no clue. So I have to just focus on the situation at hand and try and, at least resolve or adjust things when I'm interacting with that person based on their feedback and their mirroring. All right, guys, the last 5 minutes. Anything from anybody? Open floor. Questions from anybody who maybe hasn't participated in today's conversation. If you have a question but don't feel like coming live, you can throw it in the chat. Okay. Anything? Anybody? Well, with that being said, look, I don't want to take up more time of your valuable time than we need to on today's mastermind call. Here's sort of the action items that you can come out of this with, right? Think about your process and the processes that make up your systems. Think about what systems you're running in your daily life right now that might be subconscious. Think about how you can optimize those things and leverage technology to help you perform and do those things a little bit better. Look at things like time blocking, eliminating distractions, and really maybe even setting a timer to get stuff done. Think about how you can leverage a community and a group like this. And also think about, is there somebody who needs to hear about this? Maybe there's somebody who, they could benefit from knowing about process or system as well. Maybe they could come to a future roundtable or a mastermind discussion. And I encourage you guys to share this replay or come back and watch this again and carve out some time to maybe bring out your notebook to create your process while you're listening to this in the background. Have that be the inspiration for you to take action on that. So with that being said, guys, I hope you got a little bit of gold nuggets that you can apply today, right now, moving forward in whatever actions that you're doing. And it's going to give you an advantage over what you were doing before you heard this. Outside of that, a quick reminder, we're going to have Friday with the founders, Guy and I, tomorrow, 10 a.m. Mountain Time. Adjust for your time zone accordingly. We'll get a broadcast out for that. If you do not have that yet or don't have it saved on a tab, I'm going to post in the chat the week at a glance card. We do 4 live calls every week, right? They're consistent. We're relentlessly consistent about this process and how we hold the calls. On Monday, we talked about it briefly here. Sprint planning. Take an opportunity to make a plan for the week. If you haven't made a plan for this week, you can do that at any time. I just like to get into the system or process of doing it at the beginning of the week, even on Sunday before my week starts. But make that plan. If you need help doing that, join us on Mondays. Join the conversation, contribute to it, ask those questions. We want everybody to have a plan that's going to lead them to success. On Tuesdays is Tech Tuesday at 2 p.m. Central Time. Master Trainer Kathy Inman, who you heard on this call today, it's all about leveraging the technology that you have at your disposal. Think about it. If you're not using the tools that you have, you're not getting the benefit of those tools. So we want you to get the benefit, and we want you to learn all of what you have at your disposal, because there's so many different areas where this can be applied, where shuffle or tap can be applied within your current method of operation that can save you time, energy, headaches, brain damage of making forward progress in whatever you're working on. On Wednesday, you heard me mention a few of the skills and knowledge that I've learned from the mindset of a champion. We partnered with Edge Global to make that available to everybody. You can check that out, and it happens on Wednesdays. But for our 4 calls, we're talking Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. You've joined us for the Thursday call, right? The Mastermind Roundtable here. We try to change up the topics. If you have suggestions for other topics you guys want to mastermind around, just like today, I want to create value for everybody that they can implement immediately. And then we'll finish up with the call we have tomorrow, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, which is going to be Friday with the founders. We're going to talk all things Elify. We'll talk a bit about the technology. We'll talk a bit about the affiliate program. We'll talk a bit about our mission to get our technology in the hands of everybody around the world, even if it just means giving people free digital business cards. So with that being said, thank you again for giving me a little bit of your time. Hopefully it was worth it and you can apply that stuff. If you have questions, everybody has put their contact information in the chat. You can download or save that chat menu. Make sure you connect and reach out. That's what we are here for. Outside of that, everybody, make it a great rest of your week. And I will see everybody on the Friday with the Founders tomorrow. Thank you again for your time. Take care, everybody. Have a good day. Oh, my alarm's going off that we just ended.